Welcome to Health and Homelessness. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. First though, Karen would like to give a little talk about Teeth and Toes.
Okay, so Dr. Gander kind of asked me to say a few words about that. So it was on Monday, and we had several dental students show up, and as well as medical and nursing students. And the dental team alone saw 14 kids and 13 adults, and were able to give oral hygiene instruction, as well as some exams, and there were quite a few referrals, which is neat. And it was also an interdisciplinary opportunity to work with the nursing students and kind of watch how they do their foot care, and also for them to observe us do oral exams.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to that it was unique in that, well, for one thing, it's interprofessional, so that's kind of unique about that outreach. But it's like Husky Smiles, except we do adults and kids. And the kids were all over, the dental students and the med students. They loved having them there just for themselves, as well as obviously for just the attention and care that they were getting. The other event that happened this weekend was Casa Latina, which is something that Patricia Clevenger has spearheaded, and that is offering screenings and oral health education to the day workers at up near Jackson and around the Beacon Hill area. I'm not exactly sure what that area is called. But what's really nice is that, we have our affiliation with Union Gospel Mission with the dental clinic there. So we are able to refer the patients that we screen at Casa Latina to Union Gospel Mission, as well as the ladies that we see, not the children, because the UGM is just for adults, but the ladies that we saw at Mary's place. So it's very nice because we're kind of trying to develop a little network where we can go and screen patients and then actually have chairs to see them. MTI was also active, and Leah Mijo was there, and she's spearheading that. So the van was there parked outside of Hammond House. And there we got the units, so the care could be delivered immediately. So there was the UW students working and serving a lot in the community this weekend, which was great. It was a good thing for Veterans Day here. So, and we hope to have a new alliance, and with us, our speaker today, we'll tell you more about that. But I'll let
So just in general, you guys, don't forget to sign up in the sign-in sheet. I know a few of you came in early before it was here. Just make sure you get your name on it. Aside from that, the surveys, if you could fill those out and turn those in at the end, that'd be great. Without further ado, today we have Caleb Dunlap right over here. He's going to be talking about the Chief Seattle Club, and I've been told it needs no introduction, so at this time I'd like to invite you up to talk.
So I'm gonna, thank you. So I'm gonna do my best to use what's called my big house voice. So just let me know if anyone has any need for me to use a microphone. I just hate all those different things, so I'm gonna be real honest with you. So we're gonna just start by doing some general housekeeping. So if you don't need your computers for notes, you can absolutely put them away. I'm the kind of person that I went to school and I hate taking notes. So if you want, you can, but I really want the class to be experiential. And so we're going to leave quite a lot of time at the end for question and answer. So if you want to jot down questions and whatnot, please do that at the time. So before I introduce myself, I'm going to have this is my identical twin brother, Jared. He has his master's in public health and healthcare administration from Columbia, and he is currently unemployed, so he will be my designated clicker today. So formally I want to introduce myself. So, Buju Bamagzi, Bangi Etigo Ninatao Jiboim, Nin Migizi Nindudem, Nim Nagachuanang Indunjaba, Nin Caleb Dunlap, Indijnaka Jaganashimong. Nin Chief Seattle Club in the Simadana, Niguage Kizandawia. So what I told you is who I am and what I am as an Ojibwe person. So I'm Ojibwe from northern Minnesota, from the Fond du Lac Reservation. We are a part of the Migizi Nindudem, which is our clan is Eagle. and I work as the program manager at Chief Seattle Club. And so, for many of you, hearing what you just heard, you may have never heard a native language spoken. You may have never seen a native person other than what Hollywood wants to objectify us as, or what Disney wants to objectify us as. So, in saying that, I always like to, to preface any presentation with, unfortunately, this is not Native Americans 101. So there is too much to cover about Native Americans and about health and about homelessness in 45 minutes. So we're going to do our best to really compress a lot. And so we'll just go right into it. All right, so how did natives get to Seattle? So first and foremost, natives have been in Seattle for a very long time. The natives in the area, as you may or may not know, are the Duwamish, the Quamish, and the Muckleshoot peoples. And there's the Tulalibs up the road. As you know, or may not, Seattle is named after Chief Sealth, who's a part of these peoples. And so there's a lot of history on how natives have gotten to cities. So currently, 60 to 70% of the Native American population live in urban areas. And so you may have a familiarity with natives living on reservations. And so, but over the years, there's been different forms of acts of assimilation, forced assimilation, and other things throughout history that have moved natives to the city. One of the largest acts of assimilation was what we call the relocation era. And this was post-World War II and the Korean War. And so what the relocation era was they literally would fly over native reservations and flyer. And they would say, come to large cities. For example, like Chicago, Denver, San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, Oklahoma City, Seattle, and Tulsa. Come, there will be jobs, there will be education, your families will flourish. And when they got here, that wasn't how it was. The effect and the loss was of the access to traditional cultural supports. When people move off the reservation to cities, there's a loss. You don't have your elders, you don't have your traditions. You're in the city. It's kind of like coming to school, you know? If you're from a certain area and you come to a different area, you have to learn things over and over. Economic hardship, social disenfranchisement, overt discrimination, and unemployment. And this was quite mass. This happened a lot through the late 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So a large amount of Native Americans came to Seattle. And so that's why I wanted to preface this as how the community I work with is not only natives who are just here now, today, from reservations. They didn't just get off a boat, they didn't get off a plane or a train or a bus. They've been in this city for a long time. So I want to introduce the place I get to work at every single day, and I absolutely love it. It's called the Chief Seattle Club, named after the city. The city is named after himself, or itself. The history is that during the relocation era, when there was all these natives coming to Seattle itself, it was in the, you had all these years, and it was around the late 1960s when, due to, I think, a lot of the unemployment and different, problems within our community, there was found that there was a large population of homeless Native Americans down in Pioneer Square area of the city. And that's where we're still located today. So in 1970, Father Talbot, creative sort of kind of a coffee shop, where coffee storefront you could call it, where natives could come in and get coffee, pretty much stay warm. And so that's where we were originally started. We've been in 3 different locations within Pioneer Square, and currently we're located on 2nd Avenue, right after Gessler. So if any of you have been to UGM, it's just a half block up. And so we've been in that building since 2008. There was a capital campaign from 2004 until 2007. And then we did construction for a year and we opened in 2008. And our mission is to provide a sacred space to nurture, affirm, and renew the spirit of urban Native peoples. It has a large meaning to it. And so just really let that soak in. One of the things that I want to inform everyone is that everyone is a club member. And this is a big thing when you're working, no matter what you all are working in. I don't actually know all of you, so I don't know what fields you're in. But we call everyone a club member. And the biggest part of that is that I always tell people it's like a country club. When you walk into a country club, you're a member. Everyone knows your name. Everyone knows your profession. Everyone knows your favorite drink. Right? So you feel a part of it. There's a sense of ownership over that place. It's the same thing with the organization that we work with. There's a reason why people that we serve are homeless on the streets in Seattle. They may have been disenfranchised from their families based on their choices, addiction, sexuality, change of religion, all these different types of things. And so they're here in Seattle for a reason. And so we want them to feel that they're a member of something, because they might not feel like they're a member of their family or of their tribe or of any other type of community that they're a part of. So we want them to know that they're a member. And it actually really helps. They take a ton of ownership over this place. They're the ones that volunteer to clean. They will secure that place up incredibly. It's wonderful. So maybe when you're working with whoever you do, look at how it is to treat someone as differently than just a client or just a number. Who we serve over 179 tribes. Does anyone know how many tribes the U.S. has? It's over 560. And so there's still thriving populations of natives here. Half of those are in Alaska. Yeah. There's a large amount of those that are in Alaska though. So on the daily we serve 120 to 150 Native American members. Last year in 2012 we served over 2,000. 40% of that population are homeless. And so they are sleeping under bridges, under the aqueduct, in corners, wherever they can find space. 35% of those are temporary housing, which means anything from emergency shelters like UGM, anything like that. Emergency shelters, domestic violence shelters, anything like that. I do want to point out that when I speak of homeless, it also includes couch surfing. So just because someone's staying on someone's couch, that can still be homelessness. And then 25% of our population is what we call permanently housed, hopefully permanently housed. But they might have their own apartment and so forth. And our age range is from 18 to 70 plus. And so we primarily work with single adult men and women and in adult ages. There's a lot of resources, well, hopefully. There's the Orion Center, a lot of different places around the city that work with youth. And so we don't specialize in that. And so we primarily work with adult men and women. And just to give you a kind of a understanding of the population, so of the total population of Seattle, we are 1% of that population. Native Americans, American Indians, and Alaska Natives make up 1% of that population. Of the homeless population, we make up 8 to 10% of that population. And there's also what's called high utilizers. So high utilizers are, or what are coined as high utilizers is that they are using emergency services. So say they're going to Harborview, they're in the jail system, they're in say, the sobering center, detox. So there's that population of the homeless. And we, as natives, make up 20 to 25% of that. So you're kind of seeing that we're 1% of the population. And in all those other, all those other categories, it's increasing and increasing. So I just wanted to point that out to everyone. So before, sorry. So I guess the biggest thing that I wanted to point out is the health and needs of those we serve, which I believe that you're all in health and whatnot. So I can't specifically speak about all their dental needs, all their public health needs, all their medical needs. But this kind of, I think you all have an understanding, hopefully through your presentations thus far, about homelessness. There's malnutrition. I always like to talk about, if you think of SNAP. Has anyone ever heard of SNAP? It's what EBT is now. My brother is on SNAP right now. I love that. So people feel that SNAP will meet the need of malnutrition. And what I like to tell people is to challenge yourself to eat on $189 a month. So what I always like to do when I present to people is, a lot of people don't know the experience of homelessness. I have never been homeless. And I work with it every day, and I still don't know every single part of it. I grew up very poor on a reservation, so I don't understand reservation poverty. But I don't understand what it is to be homeless in a major city. But think of having a card that gives you, it was $200 until November 1st, which was decreased by $11. $11 is a lot of money. So try to think of living off $189 a month, and you can't buy warm food. So imagine you're in Pioneer Square of Seattle. Where do you go? You go to any convenience store around you. So you're all geniuses, I know. So you can see what that does to a body. You're getting... And then the thing is that people are like, well, you can go to QFC, all these things. If you're living in a shelter or living underneath a bridge, where's your microwave? Where's your stove to cook that minute rice or that oatmeal or whatever, all these, that quinoa, or whatever, like all these, it's funny because, I hear this constantly, all the answers to what can solve homelessness, But just think of that. That's just one thing. Think of living off $189, maybe in a 6-block radius of downtown. And you don't have a microwave, you don't have a stove, and you're lugging everything with you. Those who we work with, there's a large presence of infectious diseases. There's the environmental impacts of living outdoors. It rains here. I'm from northern Minnesota. I'm glad I'm not homeless in northern Minnesota. That's for sure. But there are a lot of outdoor environmental impacts on those we serve. I don't know if anyone... So, one of the things about living outdoors is in Pioneer Square, for sure. I'm sure maybe you have or you have not. There's a lot of clubs down there. A lot of nightclubs. Probably one of the saddest things is that when my club members I work with sleep outside, they get things hurled at them, they get hurt, they get injured by people that think they own a place from 1 to 3 in the morning, There was a person, I forget when it was, that was going around Seattle, this happened in Los Angeles as well, that would just kick in people's heads when they were sleeping. We'll just leave it at that. So, one of the parts I like to point out is spiritual health. For natives, spirituality is really big. And once again, when they're here in the city and they don't have that way of cleansing themselves, It's really big to understand that we all have a connection to that spiritual health of ourselves. And so when that is out of balance, that really comes into play with those that I work with. Mental health, stress and anxiety. I think we can all understand the weight of that. Genetics. So why I put genetics is, I could give you all the stats about Native Americans and how we have diabetes and heart disease and all these things. I could really make this into a really sad presentation, but I just put it as genetics, Addiction, the same thing. I could sit here and tell you all about how we're addicted to alcohol, drugs, pills, different things like that. And death. It's probably the thing that maybe not everyone with homelessness thinks about. They just think of like, oh, we need to get these people off the streets. But death occurs. Just this week, we buried our 17th person this year. 6 of those were in the month of October. That hurts. That's the reality. So, I'm going to tell a short story about one of our club members. We're just going to call him Joe. So this is Joe's story. I met Joe a month after I started working in 2011. Joe was from Barrow, Alaska. Does anyone know where Barrow, Alaska is? Yes. It is so far, I don't even know how far to explain it. It is the very tip top of Alaska. Joe, in 2009, was the student of the year at his community college. He was a Native scholar that won multiple awards for his academics. He was chosen to different boards around the United States and Alaska to represent Native college students. Joe ran his first marathon in 2009. Joe was accepted into the Seattle Art Academy. Joe moved to Seattle. And a lot like the relocation era, when natives moved away from their communities to another community, it really causes kind of a shuffle, of how do I do this? Imagine, I'm from northern Minnesota. I moved to LA for school. That was really hard. I'm glad I had my twin brother there, but it was really hard. I'm sure most of you can relate what that's like to move away from your family or community, what's familiar with you. He's moving from Barrow, Alaska. It's like 3 times, I think. I don't even know how far that is. But to be here trying to live his dream, just like I'm sure all of you are. And there's like this gray area with Joe that I don't really know, but there was a sort of a chain of events that occurred, not getting good grades based on, he's not used to the type of maybe classes or the coursework. He liked to drink. We're all social drinkers, right? I love that term. He would drink. A lot of college students do that. I had midterms, let's go for drinks, whatever. He was just the same. Until it became a problem, and he got kicked out. How do you tell your parents that you are from this very isolated village in northern Alaska? You're like their hope. I know we're our parents' hope. We're from a very small little reservation. Not many people go to school. We both went to UCLA, my brother went to Columbia. We're like all-stars, And so how do you tell your family? I got kicked out of this amazing school. So he didn't. and he ran out of money, got kicked out of his apartment, ended up on the streets. Stress, anxiety, all these things, just like midterms, let's drink it away. Let's drink it away. Drink, 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 drink. He found our club. We try to help him. I would find him slumped over in our bathrooms. We're a sober and safe facility. Slip in that wine bottle, in your jeans, whatever. And we started helping him with our services. He was looking good, getting healthy again, getting his color back. Wanted to return to Alaska, was getting ready to tell his parents all that had occurred. He was still in art school in his parents' mind. And then in September of last year, or October of last year, so almost a little over a year ago, we get a call from his mother, and he had died in September, and we never knew. He died of liver failure. And so, I don't mean to like bore you, sadden you, all those things, but that's the reality of Joe. And why I tell you that is that we're no different. I can't put all that into your mind, but I'm no different. I'm Joe. You know, many of us might think we would never be Joe. But who knows? Did Joe think he would be Joe? So, just think of that. So, next great slide is the importance of community partnership and strength building. So this is where we get out of the stat stuff and I tell you all the great things we get to do. So, at Chief Seattle Club, we call ourselves a one-stop shop. And that's simply for access. So, for a majority of Native peoples, it's a fear to go to a doctor. I know when I was growing up, Native people, Native elders, they'd say, if you go to the hospital, you just go there to die. That's when you go to the hospital, to die. So the majority of them have never seen a doctor, a dentist, a pharmacist, anything like that. They're not used to that. And so the services that we provide a fresh meal in the morning. So we're open from 7 to 2, so we're just a day center. Just a day center. So we're open from 7 until 2. We serve a fresh breakfast. I would invite all of you to come down and try this breakfast. So it's not traditionally breakfast, so we get, I always like to put out there that we get all of our food donations from Northwest Harvest and Food Lifeline. So if you're going to give money to any organizations, please give your money to them. They're incredible. So we get deliveries from them, and we serve breakfast, but is it all just pancakes every day? No. So donations come in, and we'll have like lasagna for breakfast. We'll have like, Chinese food. We'll have like all these great things, and it's awesome. You know, you gotta think of like school lunch programs. School lunch might be the only lunch that some kid has, right? So that's what we're really thinking of when we serve breakfast, is that it's okay that it's lasagna, because it might be their only meal for the day, you know. So come on down and have lasagna, or Chinese food, or some native food, or whatever. We'll take every one of you. And we have 3 kitchen staff, and all 3 of them have been through the same situations. They've all been homeless, they're all currently housed, they're all sober, and so they love to put their energy into their cooking. One of our chefs got interviewed as got in the top 20 for that chef cut show or something on the Food Network. He was all really excited about that. They did a whole issue about chefs that work with the homeless community. So he got into the top 20, but he made our cut, he didn't make their cut. So we have our food service. We give fresh lunches, or fresh bag lunches. So I'm just going by floor. So there's 4 floors in our building. That's our top floor. Then we have another floor that's like our main entrance. And then our other floor, we have our laundry service and our shower services. Just imagine it's raining in Seattle, your jeans are wet, all these different things. Like, it's just humane to be able to offer someone a shower and fresh, dry clothes. And then we have nursing services. So we receive funding. I'm going to get into that as well. We have nursing services, 20 plus hours a week. We also have a clothing closet. We also have computers and a TV room. People always ask, why do you have computers and a TV room? Like, my club members, they check their Facebook and update their Facebook statuses more than I do. And so if you're from Barrow, Alaska, and you have Facebook, how quick is that, right? You can talk to your family, you can inform them what's going on, you can ask for money, whatever. It's those simple things that we take, for granted, that are liberties, hopefully, for all of them, everyone. It gives them access to communicate with their families, gives them access to the world around them, right? And so I love that they're all on Facebook. They'll try to add me, but no. We also have an individual from DSHS that comes. He's a native liaison. He comes down to our club every single day for 4 hours and helps qualify individuals for food assistance as well as Medicaid, and then he's helping us to switch everyone into the healthcare or health plan finder, all that mess. And so we also have a partnership with the county, King County, that helps send down a CDP. It's an individual who helps people get into treatment. And so that's a part of the situations and the lives of the members that we serve. So on an average, if I was to send someone down to a county office to get assessed, it would probably take that person 4 to 6 weeks to get into treatment. If you have an addiction that's active, what is the likelihood of you going to treatment in 4 to 6 weeks? Probably not. Because of our partnership with this individual, we can get them in a bed in a treatment facility in 3 days. It's incredible. We also have an individual, or 2 lawyers that come down from the Seattle Community Law Clinic, and they help individuals get signed up for SSI or SSDI, because that's where people are. They have disabilities, all these different things. So we also have a partnership with St. Vincent de Paul. So one of the things that, if you're ever working with homeless communities, you tell them to call 211, which is the emergency line for resources. So when an individual calls 211, they're around 40% of those calls are directed to St. Vincent de Paul. If you want to give to any other organization, give to St. Vincent de Paul. What's great is that Chief Seattle Club has a direct partnership with them. So our members don't have to call 211 and sit on the phone. And then what happens is, then St. Vincent de Paul sends out Vincentians, which are volunteers that go to wherever they're at. It doesn't matter if they're under the aqueduct. They're going to go to them, they're going to find what their need, and they're going to meet their need there. So because of that partnership, we have an individual that comes from St. Vincent de Paul once a week and works directly with our club members to meet their needs. All right, so then we also have a partnership with Reach. So Reach works with those high utilizers that I was talking about. So the reason why it's important to work with high utilizers is that millions of dollars is spent every year on high utilizers. And so we have Reach, who works as a case manager with all these different individuals. We also have a mental health partnership with Harborview, which is incredible. We have this individual there 32 hours a week. And she's also a case manager that can help people get into housing. And I think that we also have an art program. So come on down. Our members make native arts. Actually, they're native and they make arts. I should say that. Whether it's native art or not. They make cards, they make paintings, they make dream catchers. So dream catchers are originally an Ojibwe thing, and these people have been making dream catchers every single day. But the reason why they are making, or why we have our arts program is that it is a way to help them re-engage. Something that brings them back to who they are as a Native person. And hopefully that will help move them forward. And so, why I tell you about all these incredible things, and not even half the things that I do, because you don't even know what I exactly do, but my biggest part of my job is to make partnerships happen. And why that occurs is to leverage costs. We're a nonprofit. We work on anywhere from a $500,000 to a $600,000 budget a year. Very small. And so to offer all those services, we would probably never make it. And so we have to make community partnerships. And that's why I really bring that up, because it's the same thing with maybe what you're doing with all the different toes and teeth. That's huge. To look at a person's feet, we have so many diabetics. To look at their toes to make sure that there's no infections, because once you have an infection, there goes amputation. For natives, it's a sick joke, but seriously, we're always like, you got the beats yet? We always joke like that. Because it's morbid, but it's true. Because within natives, sometimes we're always, it's like a fatality, kind of a fatalism, where it's like, oh, you got the beads yet? You got the beads? Seen you gain a couple pounds, you got the beads? It's sick, but it's true because it's so rampant in our community. So looking at people's toes, looking at people's teeth, I think that most of society thinks of anything in your mouth as though it's disconnected from your whole body. An infection in your mouth can affect your heart, can affect, so many different things, right? So, obviously, that's something that impacts our community. So therefore, we want to make community partnerships. Because I am not a doctor, I'm not a dentist. None of the staff is. We can't afford to hire a dentist or doctor. So we make these community partnerships, and that does help leverage the costs. And so I want to leave it at that and move into really looking at when you're working with homeless community, which I absolutely hate the word homeless, just to be honest. I usually call it twos, temporarily without shelter. Terrible twos, right? So, the biggest thing is to really look at the strength of those who you're working with. I think we're in a society that looks at needs, looks at all the different negative things. But when I go into work, I look at the strengths of those who I work with. Why? Because I'm a long way from home. And I love going to work every single day because it's like working with my aunties and uncles every single day. So I get a lot of joy out of doing that. And so one of the things that I like to look at is a lot of people talk about rehabilitation when they're working with people. I don't even know I always ask my board of directors, I ask staff, like, what does rehabilitation mean? It can mean so many different things to every single individual, right? Last year we served 2,000 people. There's not one case manager on our crew. It's me. I can't work with 2,000 members to get them to be rehabilitated. So what I practice is re-engagement. And what I want to talk about is the importance of engaging in the community. We're all Joes, right? At one time. So if we're all Joes, we all want to use Facebook. We all want to go to a Mariners game. So I like to bring our club members. We got a van donated through Boeing Industries. And so 15 passenger van, I call it my car. But there's a lot of tribal communities in this area. And they have a lot of different ceremonies, a lot of different feasts, a lot of different community activities, and I will bring them to every single one of them, if I And why that is because when they're sitting across the table from someone that looks like them, there's no homeless Joe. It's just Joe, right? And so they're experiencing sitting with people, eating at a table with people, talking about the world, talking about themselves. When you're on the streets, it's about a 30-second interaction with people. Do you have money? Do you have drugs? If not, get the hell away. Right? So, for them to sit and engage with people is really healthy. I like to bring them to, we try to get a lot of different donations from different museums. So I bring them to Chihuly Art and Glass Garden. What homeless shelter is bringing people to Chihuly Art Glass Museum? You know? Would you expect to go to Chihuly Art Glass Museum and be like, there's 10 homeless people? Incredible. But why not? Right? So, I personally have taken it on to re-engage people, which is why it's important to have a nurse on staff, why it's important to have, not on staff, partnerships, why it's important to have that partnership with that nurse, why it's important to have that partnership with mental health, why it's important to have teeth and tooth or whatever, toe and tooth, and all these different partnerships is that it's engaging them with their life again. It's engaging them with understanding, okay, I have something wrong with my toe. I need to go to a nurse. I need to go to all these different, we have twice a month we have an urban Indian legal clinic. We open our doors to anyone to come down, and it is not based on your income at all, and they can get legal advice for free. That's another engagement tool, right? Not everyone has ever, I mean, I've never had to deal with a lawyer. I'd be scared shitless if I had to go to a lawyer. They'd be like, this guy's gonna charge me $300, this guy or gal is gonna charge me $300. Like, how am I gonna afford this? I don't even know what to ask. What if I don't know what to ask for the next hour and I get charged, you know? And so there's a lot of ways to engage the community, which helps those individuals to realize their personal strengths. I don't have best practice approaches to that or models. I didn't write any papers on that. I haven't gotten a PhD in re-engagement, but from experience, I can tell. You know, every year in this area, there's a large canoe journey, and so that's, you know, as you know, and being in Seattle, there's waterways all around us. There's Salish seas. So if you go back 200 years ago, Seattle was still the spot to be. So one of the things I was going to share is, of the population we serve, over 50% are from Alaska. So there really are Joes, because I don't know why, but there's still this influx of people wanting to come to Seattle from Alaska. And so I literally ask these Alaska Native members of ours, like, why are you coming to Seattle? It's so far. But it's like they're LA or they're Hollywood or like the big city that's gonna still like bring all these dreams of theirs alive. And they think that there's tons of jobs here. And my brother can tell you that's no. But I'm just gonna tell you, my brother is classified as homeless right now because he's living on my couch. So there's a homeless individual in the couch. But yeah, my train of thought. But it is about really realizing personal strengths and re-engaging the community work. So what can you do? Lots of things. I just really pointed out that I strive to help people to rid the us versus them, the us and them mentality. You know, we've all been on the streets and had people ask you for money, all these different things. I do. I work in the area. I don't bring change or cash to work because I am a giver. And I will give whatever I can. You know, I just don't. But that doesn't solve anything either, right? like I've told you, I've already advertised like 3 places you can give your money to, right? You know, so there's that way to give. You can give financially, you know, but you're all in school. Maybe when you're out of school, you're temporarily unemployed, or hopefully you have a job. You know, you can give financially. But I always like to tell individuals is that just as much as the members that I work with, that I want them to find their individual gifts to help empower themselves. Find your unique gifts when working with the homeless. Even if you don't know how to relate or work with someone, just be yourself. It's like going on a date. Not Match.com. No. But, you know, like, just be yourself. You know, you don't have to be anything more than you are. You know, like, it's all just humanity, right? We're all just Joes. And so you just need to get to know people, ask questions, let them ask questions to you, you know? Because people always ask like, oh, can I help? You know, like the largest times of the year that people want to come volunteer are Thanksgiving and Christmas. And they all send me emails saying, please can I come serve at your soup kitchen? I think we've served soup at my kitchen twice in the last year. And we are not a soup kitchen. But the biggest thing is that it's not just about feeding. That's good. If you want to come down and feed people, that's awesome. You get some food yourself. But, you know, use your unique skills. If you know how to make resumes, if you know how to, you know, clean teeth, if you know how to, you know, foot clinics, those are huge. You know, if you know how to do people's hair and makeup, I'll let you do mine and then we can do theirs. No. But it's like those things. Like we have a women's group that we do every week. And that is something that started this year, and it's probably the most empowering thing for our Native women. Most, I would say 95% of them have all been victims of domestic violence. You know, sexual violence as young adults. You know, they may have children. They may have children also in homelessness. You know, they may have had their children taken away. And so for them, we do a lot of stuff. So for they'll do their makeup, and they bring like all the laughter to the club. You know, I had some individuals come in October to talk about mammograms, and so we made these mammograms. So graham cookies, someone volunteered to make graham cracker cookies with these potato candy things and jelly bean nibbles. I don't cook those things, right? I don't want to play with mammograms, you know. But they were able to come down and use their unique teaching abilities and their unique ways of just, you know, to come down and share. And that helps for people to engage. And so I know I didn't get to necessarily touch on like all the specific, like we had 25% of health disparities in this area and that area and all that. But really, when you're working with homelessness, it's really about humanity. And as Native people, we're just like any other. You know? We have a unique history, and I could teach an entire week on that history, but I can't. So you can visit us on the web at www.chiefseattleclub.org. You can like us on Facebook. I'm a Facebook genius, so we put up a lot of pictures and a lot of our needs. If you ever want to donate coffee, Natives love coffee. We have to have coffee at like every single event. So, but this is really what I wanted to gift all of you today, to really give you that initial experience. And so I just say once again, Miigwech, Pisindalia, so thank you for listening. And I don't know how much time we have left, but probably 4 minutes. But if anyone has any last questions, please nothing about casinos or taxes or.
Actually, and maybe this wouldn't be that's in the part, but is there any access to IHS clinics for your members?
Yeah, so So the Seattle Indian Health Board is really it's pretty much up the road on 12th and Jackson area. And that is where, so we have a partnership. So for our nursing services, we have a partnership through Healthcare for the Homeless, which is through the county, and the Seattle Indian Health Board. So they send a nurse down 20 hours a week that is a native nurse. And so it helps for people who have never seen a nurse or any medical professional, for them to see another person that's native. But let me break it down. When people need something, they don't care if you're brown, black, purple, green, orange. They're just in need. So, but they do have access.
Please, I want to give a round of applause. Ask questions, please do, but I just wanted to acknowledge you both while we both still here. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Yeah, sorry you need to interrupt the
So they do have access to IHS.
But this nurse